Hey, this is Cameron, and welcome to the reaction log. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Alright, we got a special spicy one here for you. One that I don't even have to search for, because it's just in my recommended when I open up YouTube. Look at that! Dude, that's the frickin' sore hands effect right there. All you gotta do is put yourself, green box with someone else, arrow with your title, self-taught's your title apparently, actual fraud, that's what my title should be. Dude, 10,000 views in 2 days, that's like a decent performing video right there. I'd be happy with that. Oh my god, dude, I think he went up like 400 subscribers in a couple of days too. I know that feeling all too well. It's weird, you get this like adrenaline rush from it and stuff. Yeah, dude, that's good stuff. Alright, listen, here's the deal. A week or two ago, I made a video reacting to Tom, sorry, I said your name wrong in my first video. Someone needs to give me guitar lessons in saying things correctly. Alright, so I reacted to your video and I basically gave you a YouTube reaction guitar lesson. And it seems like you listened to a lot of what I said. You also, you know, threw some of it out, which is fine, because that's kind of the point of a guitar lesson. You don't necessarily need to follow everything that the teacher says, but usually what's talked about in a lesson is something that can be improved because it's like a lower point of the performance that you had, and you give it some thought. And it seems like you did that. So let's actually go over the thought that you gave it. Before we jump into it, let me go ahead and introduce myself. I am a classical guitarist here on YouTube. And what does it mean to be a YouTube classical guitarist? It means that the only lessons you actually give are reaction videos, and everyone makes money from it. Oh yeah, those sweet lucrative views. So before we jump into it, most of this video is going to be a reaction to my video. I mainly want to focus on the ending of it, where he actually performs. That's why I'm here. I want to just, you know, see what he worked on, maybe see what needs more work still. I assume that that's welcome, because like, you know, my face is on it and stuff. So I'm sure he saw this coming. So, you know, more work to be done. And actually, just watching it a little bit, the whole beginning is on the idea of being a self-taught guitarist, and I just want to touch upon that and maybe edit some of the things that I said. The whole self-taught meme that's been kind of a thing on the channel for a while, it all stemmed from Jacob Collier and that one Adam Neely video where he reviewed that woman who like is self-taught, but she's playing insane stuff on guitar and was also around professional musicians. Apparently that's what I remember from the video. And it's just a funny line that we draw between self-taught and being someone like me, someone who is like a student, and I would never claim to be self-taught. I make fun of it because I feel like there's this notion of being self-taught that's like a point of pride for people, or someone would actually refuse lessons because they don't want to lose like their self-taught status. And I just want to point out how silly that is. And just to give you an example, like what does my non-self-taught guitar journey look like? Well, I show up to my guitar lessons every week at a university. I'm in grad school, by the way. I play for my guitar teacher. He tells me why I'm not playing very well, and then I go home and I work on those things that he says, and then I come back and then he tells me more things why I'm not playing very well. He doesn't do the work for me, you know? Like I have to go home and listen to what he says and decide if it's like worth practicing these things or not. And even though I have instruction, I'm still paving my path forward, and I'm more just inspired in every lesson to keep paving, and usually paving in the way that he suggests. So with that, it's like, am I self-taught? I would say no, obviously, and anybody in my situation would say no. Now say that you had some document that was talking about phrasing, and then you apply it to the Bach that you're working on. Are you self-taught then? Because you're following instructions from a document and then applying it to your music. I feel like people would look at that and say like, oh yeah, I am self-taught. And I don't know, it just doesn't really make sense to me. Then someone like Leo, for example, doesn't have regular lessons, but will occasionally attend a lesson where someone like me will just give him these things to improve, and then he goes and improves them. Is he self-taught? Like, I don't know, if you want to call yourself self-taught, that's fine. The main thing that I don't want is for people to have pride around being self-taught, because there's nothing wrong, and in fact it is necessary to ask for help and guidance from other people who might know more about the subject than you. And it seems like the whole self-taught thing comes up a lot in music, and even specifically in guitar, and I think because guitar is like a folky instrument, it's sort of the quintessential folk instrument. So a lot of people learn it without a formal teacher, just like they pull some documents online and they just learn stuff or videos. And it becomes this point of pride for them where like, oh yeah, I learned all this on my own. And I just want to fight that as much as I can, because like, especially in pop culture, like any person who's trying to seem cool, they're always self-taught. And if you do have the opportunity to learn from someone, you absolutely should. It will never hurt you. It'll never take away from your music. It'll only add, because knowledge is power. If you want to check out his entire video with all the talking points that he has and his reaction to like all my stupid talking, his video will be linked in mine. And
today I'm gonna make a beat.
So, without further ado,
let's jump into it. Let me know how you think it went.
Yeah, I can see why you guys don't like that. It's kind of weird, isn't it? I hated that. Oh my god. I'm gonna keep doing it, though. Alright, let's see what we got. Alright, nice. Is that, did I hear a wrong note in there? Hold on. Nope, it was right. Sorry. I just don't know what I'm talking about. Alright, very nice. That part was the most solid in the last one, so the improvements, they're not going to be as dramatic here. It still sounded very nice. It was very good. Smooth, connected, all that. One main difference, the ornament did not happen twice, and the ornament, when it did happen, it felt much more subtle. So it seems like you took my advice, playing it as written the first time, second time, add in a little bit of flair. I think it's a good way to go about it. It's just too much. I don't care what genre of music it is. When you hear the same thing just twice in a row, it loses its luster really fast. You gotta keep doing new stuff, and I found that to be much more effective. Let's talk about that retard at the end. You played that A minor chord, and then you slow down a lot when you played that low E, and I'll actually pull up the sheet music here. And then you kind of rush through the chord a bit. Of course you can do whatever you want, but something that I would be able to do if you want to have like total control of this music is be able to gradually slow down. I heard something kind of like this. Like, it just kind of rushed through that E major chord, and I would just keep that gradual slowdown going. And you can even try hearing that just with the bass line. That's kind of how I feel like it should be. Ultimately, it's all sounding a lot better, but I would think about measure 7 there with a gradual slowdown finally leading to that A resolution. And that A that you land on finally, it's all about there. And then all this is kind of like the smoke after the final resolution. This is the main thing, and that's just sort of a result of that. So it's all about landing on that A. Alright, let's go ahead and move on and see how the rest of this is. Alright, nice. So I'm hearing like pushing and pulling with the dissonance and then the resolution of those dissonances in this. Something I would maybe consider, let me actually... And when you play that, that's actually the first time I'm really hearing a pushing and pulling, because it feels like everything leading up to that is just pushing. Like you're not taking any time at all. And I think maybe you could take some time. Just sort of letting it breathe can be a nice idea. And I don't play this, so I'm just kind of reading it, so forgive if I'm like missing notes and stuff. But the way I see this, we have this initial C major. And like, you're not going to give it time like that, but that's the first statement, kind of like if I'm speaking, bum, 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 da, 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 just a breath or something, you know? And the new thing, and then when we go back to C major, it's kind of like this oasis, just this peacefulness before things start getting crazy with that whole like circle of fifth section there. So we can lead into it. And then just... There are these moments where you can just take time to let it breathe, and it feels like a lot of what you're playing is just pushing forward, and I think like the actual performance is probably suffering from that too, because it's hard to just keep this continuous motion. I don't even think it sounds better to do that too. Like, I think it makes sense to let it just breathe. But I would just try to work out what the ideas are, and then just allowing a little bit of space between them. And this is sort of the difference between the genres of music, because I'll get comments about this, like when I play BWV 997. Like, there's one flamenco guy that says, like, you and David Russell need to start practicing with the metronome. Like, I can't snap to this at all. The reason why is because I'm allowing space between the phrases. Because this kind of music, it's not so much about keeping a perfect metronome beat, but it's about telling a story and separating these ideas to be a story. So when I play like this, for example, like, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but if I play it just straight through without taking that, which is of course cool in its own right, but it does feel a little breathless, and it's a decision to be made. So I think that thinking about that stuff could be a good idea. Yeah, I don't know, hopefully that made sense and I'm not just rambling at you. But just keep in mind that you can treat this music less as like a metronomical like dance number and more of a monologue. And in a monologue, you have a general pace that you're speaking at, but you can take moments, you know, and just a breath. Like, you can have these breaths in the music, especially where it makes sense. Like, and same thing with a monologue. Like, you wouldn't have a breath somewhere where a breath shouldn't be. Like, if you just listen to yourself speak, you hear where the breaths are. This music is like that too. So that's my only point. All right, moving on. All right, nice, really good. So first off, those slurs and the picked notes, those ba-da-da-da-ba-da-da-da, those sound like worlds better than the first time you played it. It sounds like you worked on that quite a bit, and that's really good. Good job on that. I know that you said something in your video earlier on. You can watch his video if you want to hear exactly what he said. I mentioned that that high E that you're playing is kind of the least important part of the music, because it's just a drone, right? Like, the music is... that's the melody. It's not that. It's just something to fill in the gaps. I gave you the advice to just play those softly and to just try to shape this. And you made a point in your video to say that you didn't want to play all of it softly. And as you heard in that, he did a crescendo at the end with the E's, and I found it very effective. Let's listen to that again. Yeah, it's a cool effect, and I'm not the one who suggested that you do that. You came up with that on your own. And that is sort of the beauty of a guitar lesson, I think. It's not necessarily just following everything your teacher tells you to do, especially when it comes to decisions like that, like musical decisions. The purpose of the lesson is more to just call attention to something that I don't think that you were thinking about as much as you should be. Now, when I hear that, it sounds like a lot of thought went into that. And even though it might be different from what I said, or like maybe how I would play it, but I recognize that you're not just slapping notes around and you're making a musical decision. And that decision is unique to you. You came up with that. So in a guitar lesson, should you feel bad about not following every little detail your teacher tells you? No, like, a lot of this stuff I'm just coming up with on the whim, but I'm just recognizing these things that seem the most ill-considered, and I'm telling you that, and now you're considering them more. It's a wonderful thing, and that's why when you have a piece of music at this level, where you've been playing it for a while, you have it fully memorized, you can perform through it, you're playing it, like, a couple months goes by and it doesn't really improve at all, that is the time to get a guitar lesson. Because a teacher will point out everything that seems ill-considered, and now you have a checklist of like 5 things that you can make the most considered part, and it'll elevate the entire performance beyond what it ever could be without that one guitar lesson. So that's a really good way to go about guitar lessons if you can't afford them, for example. If you can only get like a couple a year, just prepare a bunch of music. And I guarantee you any guitar teacher will be down to help you, and they'll probably even run over lesson time. I'm not going to promise that, of course, you know, their time is valuable, but that's like the most fun thing to do as a guitar teacher, when somebody has a bunch of work already done and you're just finding the things that they maybe missed, and then they come back like months later and it's like, wow, this is like so much better. As far as value in lessons go, this is the peak right here. All right, moving on. Ah, then we have the original ornament there. Okay. And you save it for the end. And you know what? It's kind of welcome. Like, it was fun to hear that ornament one time, and I heard other variations of that ornament in other places, but it was different. Like, it sounded like you played a G natural there. And that's what makes it fun for me to listen to, because I know that thought went behind this. Like, when you're just playing notes, and it's just what comes naturally, and you're just kind of piddling through it, like, I don't really enjoy listening to something like that. But this whole performance so far, every phrase, there has been something interesting that I didn't hear the last time I heard it performed. That's great. All right, let's see how this ends. See, again with that retard, ba-da-dee-da, da-da-da-da-da, I would really practice making it a gradual da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum instead of ba-dee-da-dee-da, da-da-dee-dum. It's just kind of jarring. I wouldn't do that. Practice the smooth, gradual slowdown. And that circle of fifth section, the how the piece ends, like I said last time, that's your least familiar spot, because of course it is. It's the ending of the piece. Sounds way better now. And in fact, I actually like how you played this one more than the first one, because the first one you know way better and you feel comfortable pushing through it and rushing. But I really felt this sense of like phrasing when you played this last part. So I would say do that for the first time too. Like, just let it breathe a little bit. You don't have to constantly but you can go like almost like you need to take a breath, you know. All right, let's hear the ending. Alright, let's talk about that ending a little bit. This piece is so full of energy because it's a perpetual motion, kind of fast, shreddy piece. Like, that's how it kind of is. And this ending is kind of the moment that it all stops. And with it being the final, like, resting place of the piece, that vibrato had more energy than, like, anything I heard in that piece. It was like... That is not a restful way to end this. How I would do it is just some kind of... and then just let it kind of sing. So the main things I want to say here, it sounds a lot better to me. It sounds more nuanced. It sounds like you thought a lot more about every part that I talked about, and even other parts too. I think you're playing very breathlessly. You're pushing through, and there's no letting up. And I think you could probably just let it breathe a little bit. What I want to do with our last little bit of time here, let's actually hear professionals playing it who actually have learned this piece, because I haven't learned it. I'm not going to play it for you. But I just want to see if we can find these things that I'm talking about, just so we have examples of what it sounds like in this piece in particular. All right, it looks like this guy has the most popular one, so let's see how he sounds. Wow, he is shredding. But between that shredding, there's a lot of nuance going on. The crescendo and diminuendo, and that slowdown between the repeated phrase that you're about to hear again. Like, listen to all that again. It's gonna grow. And slow. And then it lands on it again. That's the breathing that I'm talking about there. Let's actually go back to your video. Like, again, it's a musical choice, and there's, like, vibes to be had with just pushing through, but I think it sounds much more natural, and it just sounds better to me to just have this moment, and then it just picks back up, you know? Yeah, beautiful. Alright, so he did, like, exactly the opposite of what I said there. That was not smoky at all. That was very much just, like, a part of the phrase it sounded. Which, this stuff is variable, you know? Like, everybody plays this differently. I thought that had pretty good vibes there. I liked that. Sure, play it like that. Like, it sounds great. I mainly want to hear just the breaths that he takes. So let's keep listening through. He did exactly what I would do there. After that little C major oasis section that I talked about, and then the circle of fifths happens. And I think there was a moment, it sounded like he just missed a note, and he just, like, hit it later. I don't think that was on purpose. It's weird that he didn't just re-record this. Let me see. Was that a mistake? I feel like it wasn't, though. It doesn't seem like it was. No, I don't think it was. I think he just, like, I think he's just teasing us a little bit. That was crazy, dude. See, like, and that's, like, a wacky decision. Like, if you did that, I'd be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But, like, you know, this guy's doing some, like, crazy stuff like that. It shows you the expressiveness you can add to this. But again, listen to the breaths. Just a straight up gap. Let's hear how he plays those E's. Hey, looks like you made the right call on that one, Leo. He crescendoed those too. And rushed the cadence pretty hard too. Let's hear that again. You can really hear the detail in the bass line. That to this guy is what makes this piece, how the bass is shaped and phrased. It is so interesting to listen to and so well played. I mean, my God. Beautiful. Did you see how subtle his vibrato was at the end? You know, and a cut off, and then that's it. All right, let's hear one more performance. The second most popular Carcassi study. What are you, freaking clickbaiter, freaking YouTube guy? But you can tell this guy's a pro because it's a nice looking video, so let's see what we got. Pushes through it. It's a different musical decision. That's what you did. That's what he did. It's not what I would do. It's not what the other guy would do. But these are choices that you can make, and we're just kind of telling you what they are. All right, let's keep listening. Listen to the articulation of the bass note there. That's a thing he's doing on purpose. Staccato the bass note there. Again, it's not really my style. It's not what I would do. But this is him, you know, and who are we to criticize what he would do? Whoa. Very different from the last one that we heard. A huge retard there. Whoa. But he thought that that moment was big enough to finally allow it to breathe and then continue on with the ending finally. There's stuff to gather from any performance of this, you know. And he's taking the repeat. We don't have to hear all that. So which version of this do I prefer? The first guy. And he also got more views without clickbait and a crappier video. So, like, I don't know. This is the version that I would want to sound like. But hopefully that was just something for you to give you more to chew on with your interpretation of this piece. And if any of you are working on this back at home, you can, you know, take all that, do with it what you want. So the main point of this, it's not to tell you what to do, of course. That wasn't the point of the first video either, but it just will give you ideas, and then with that, you can deepen your interpretation and all that stuff, and I think we can call it a wrap here. So let's do that. Of course, if you made it this far, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. I posted Leo's video in the description down there, so go check on that. Yeah, if you want some guitar lessons, I'm not offering them. I'm sorry about that. I know people who are, so if you send me an email, I can put you in contact with one of the grad students that I know, because they're all taking students. I'm not, though, because I have too many Marson videos to make. Hey, that first video where I was bullying Leo, that one seemed pretty well received, and it seems like a lot of you want more stuff like that, so here it is. Of course, if you want to, like, send me links to your playing, even though you might not formally be my student, you kind of can be if I make a video about you. But feel free to post your renditions of pieces on YouTube and maybe link my name to it or something, and I can tell you what I think. If a bunch of you do that, maybe I'll do a video where I go through like several of them and just kind of give what I have. Oh, Rutan's Delight. There's a sale right now, 15% off the entire month of December, so go ahead and pick up some Christmas gifts. We got the Sorehand sweatshirt, we got the stickers, we got sweatpants. I'm not wearing them right now, but the sweatpants are pretty dope. I wear them all the time. And yeah. Alright, well, I'll see you in the next one.